And the last one or two board members to come in. Right? Yeah. Paula, Laura. Those of you who are coming to board meetings back before the consolidation, before the STEM Academy, will recognize this as a throwback to this is how the setup was at in our boardroom when we had a boardroom to meet in. And then when we got kicked out of there for the 7th graders, we went to the library and they set it up more like kind of like a U, an extended U shape. And then because of COVID, when we came back from that, that's why they had us separated 6 feet and everything on the stage and then on the floor. So we're bringing it back to the way that it used to be. Dr. Pabola's not here, so maybe we just vote to like get rid of the football field and build a boardroom there. No. No? Oh, okay. Paula's here, and I don't know if you're there or over there. Okay. So whose seat is that? Whose seat is that? Oh, okay. All right. We'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are going to deviate just slightly from our normal schedule of events here, and we're going to have a presentation by both our outgoing superintendent and our incoming superintendent on the ARP ESSER III funding proposal.
Mrs. Egan was going to help with this, and she had an unfortunate loss in her family. She couldn't be here. But it's important that we start talking about this, and I wanted to kind of give you a timeline, because what we've learned in the last probably 30 days is that we have to have, the state has to distribute this money by March 24th. And if we want to apply for this money, we need to do it soon, because we have the process that has to go in, it has to be approved, and then has to have a seal of approval by March 24th. We can always amend it. It can always be revised. So this is sort of our first attempt at it. So the process was, we met on January 4th, I sent out an email. It had different stakeholders in it and different folks that we had invited, and to come to a meeting on January 6th. So on January 6th, we had a Zoom meeting set up in the afternoon, and then the earlier part of the day, we actually met with youth advocate programs, children and youth, and we met with Wyoming County Special Needs. So we had invited folks to come that we knew worked with our students, and also gain their input. So part of what you're going to see tonight is that original presentation. The other part of it is that we took their feedback and we added it back in. So this also includes their feedback as community organizations, what they feel like, okay, these are things that could be helpful to kids. So, our ESSER's money is divided into 2 buckets. That 7% set aside, originally we were not told we were going to get that. The state held that back, And that money then, when they finally released it, they said, you have to fill out the application in November. So we did submit that, all right? Again, everything can be revised. Everything can be changed. But there was $301,000 that was kind of like a surprise that we were going to get it. And so it had very specific buckets that you had to put it in. The ESSER III money is the 3.8 million. That's the one that we need to get in. I would say by mid-February, if you will, we need to at least push the submit button. You can always go back and edit it. So the 7% set aside is that $301,000. This is the part that had to be actually submitted in November. So this is how they broke it up. They have buckets. They tell us what those buckets are, and then they tell us how much we must spend. Okay, hi, how are you? All right. So they tell us how much that we have to spend, that we're required to spend. We can spend more, but we must spend at least that minimum amount. So, they say, okay, you have to spend $43,000. You have to allocate $43,000 for after-school programs. So what we said is, okay, if we to do that, we would need salary and benefits. So that's how we broke that down. The next thing was they said you have to do a summer school. Well, we started that last summer. We had a pretty robust summer school, and our plan has always been to keep running them, at least for the next couple of years, to combat learning loss. So we said, again, we're going to need salary and benefits, so that's what we're going to use it for. Learning loss / SEL set aside. SEL, for those of you that don't know, is social emotional learning. After we consolidated, we added social emotional learning into our special cycle, and so we had that pre-COVID. Right now, we only have it K-1-2. So we said, okay, we'll use that money from this year to pay for the teacher that we have teaching social emotional learning K-1-2. Okay? So we don't, it's shrunk up, but that's how we're proposing to use it. Professional development for SEL, we said, well, rather than training the whole faculty, that what we would do is use that money to send our counselors, our school counselors, to do trainings like at the IU about, how do we make our school community more trauma-informed, etc. So we looked at the summer training, and we looked at spending that money to have our counselors trained, and then they can bring back the best of that to the rest of the faculty. Reading improvement set aside was $17,000. Again, they said that was the minimum we could spend on that. We actually were allocating the foundations, the decodables, the stuff that we're using this year in the lower grades for that reading improvement. The learning loss and other learning loss, again, we put back into the summer programs and some math manipulatives. So we total out, we can get to that, again, at $301,000. It can be changed at any time. So let's say we hit the submit button, and 6 months from now, we find that we need to move this around a little bit, or we're going to use it for something different. We can go back in and we can edit that. It's called a revision in the eGrant system. It's not a big deal. We do it. Now this is the big chunk. This is the $3.8 million. I'm going to talk about the instructional expenditures, and Paul is going to talk about non-instructional expenditures. All right, so this year we added 5 grant-funded positions. We added grant-funded positions, and the terms are indicated there. So right now we brought on 5 teachers. Not all of them are teaching online, but they may be filling in for teachers that we do have teaching online. Again, we had to staff Fusion C3. Last year, when we were running Fusion C3, we had extra staff because not everybody was in school. This year, everybody but 135 kids are in school, so we had to bring on some folks to staff that. We created 3 transition classrooms. grade, second and third grade, all right? We put our best staff there, our best teachers, and these were kids that we did not want to retain. But these were kids who suffered a lot of learning loss last year. And we did not want to say, well, you know, you're going to stay in first grade. It's not an option. It's not good for kids. So what we did is we created a second grade classroom that maybe didn't start at the second grade level. Started with those kids were at, and they're making really good grades. The test scores look really good. But they're small groups. Again, they were their very best teachers. And so what we created was 3 of those classrooms. We also were asking, we would like to create a high school literacy interventionist. We have talked at least for 6 years about having a reading specialist at the high school. And we've never done it. But we have kids, if we're talking about learning loss and we're talking about kids who need help in reading, this is the time to do it. And so we put that in the budget for the 22-23 school year and 23 and 24. So we're trying to think out. 1 high school math teacher, again, to help us catch kids up, and 3 transition classroom paraprofessionals. Those are those rooms I was talking about, first and third grade. We're putting a para in there for extra support. So those are all the salaries. And then the next line would be the benefits for those salaries. Again, depending on whether it's a 2-year thing or a 1-year thing. Then we said summer school program, we're going to put in $350,000 for 2 summers worth of wages, $45,000 for 2 summers worth of benefits for those teachers. This year, I think we ran the program 10 weeks. Again, then there's just the summer school program benefits for Social Security, student transportation. So last summer, with 200 kids in the program, 10 weeks, we spent about $100,000. And so we thought, well, if we're going to run it 2 more years, that's $200,000. We'll budget that. Then there is an additional $25,000 there for field trips. That was a big deal to the kids last summer. They hadn't gone anywhere. And so at the end of every week, we took a field trip somewhere, depending on their age. $26,000 for books and supplies for summer. And at the high school, we want to build on some extended learning activities, some enrichment activities, and opportunities for kids to extend their learning. There's 2 SEL teachers in here. So again, for the 22-23 school year, what we're proposing is to bring that back for 3rd through 6th grade and continue it in first pace 1-2, but also get back to that model that we had right after we consolidated. The benefits for those teachers, we talked about after-school programs. And that would be for 2 years, and the salary, this is a part-time position. There could be multiple part-time positions here for over 2 years. After school, we would need to pay some pieces on that and Social Security. And then there's $118,000 there for textbooks, and that could be at any level. But we don't currently have anything in the budget for next year right now for textbooks. So the instructional costs, about $2.5 million as it stands right now. So Paul, I'm going to give this to you. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Doherty. I'm the incoming superintendent for Tunkhannock Area School District, and I couldn't be more excited and more proud to say that out loud, and really looking forward to getting to know everyone and really serve. Nobody can hear my too. Heather, shared that Mary Jean couldn't be here and asked if I'd be willing to speak at the board meeting. I said absolutely. I love getting up and meeting people and speaking with people, but it's unfortunate Mary Jean couldn't be here, so I'm going to go through this part that she had put together about the non-instructional pieces to ESSER
Oh, I
III.
think you're having trouble hearing you. Even if you just
Okay.
stand back here closer.
See, you're still the boss.
I just project better.
Still the boss. I was thrilled to be here and talk about the non-instructional pieces of the ESSER III money and what the plan is right now. And again, this could be revised. A lot of these things came out of meetings that were held with community partners. The first one is support services salary, which is allocated for $95,000, and the benefits. That's a position that actually exists. And what we're doing is we're using that money. So we're able to put this money, pay it out of the grant and therefore free up some money back in the general fund. So we're just reallocating where that payment is coming from. It's a position that's going to be half paid through ESSER, half paid through Title I, and that'll be for the next 2 school years. The support services administration salary, again, there's been some discussion about the need potentially for a 2-year position for a math supervisor. If you look at some learning loss and where kids seem to be struggling, it's certainly that mathematics, there's definitely a need. So there's been some discussion about the possibility of bringing on a math supervisor, specifically targeting K-8, to really take a look at the curriculum and what our student needs are and devising a plan with that. There's benefits that certainly go along with that, and PSER's contributions, and again, that would be a 2-year position. There's also been some discussion about the possibility of bringing on a part-time grants coordinator that could oversee the current grants that are in place, these ESSER grants and other ones, but also seek out more grant funding. As you can imagine, administering these grants it's extensive. It's very extensive. We're dealing with a large amount of money. So there's been some possibility about bringing people in for that. Cleaning supplies and PPE for next school year is allocated at $150,000. Something that's very dynamic that really jumped at me was an outdoor learning space at the high school, which I think is something that really became important or we found out the importance when really the pandemic came and we were looking for outdoor space. So this would be a flexible space outside with the possibility to be heated and cooled, and it could be used as a learning space. It could be used for a lot of different resources, but that would be certainly something dynamic to add here to the high school. $150,000 would be allocated towards Chromebook replacements, which is certainly a good use of that. And also that, if you go to the next page, a part-time nurse salary. There's currently a part-time nurse that's in place, her salary and benefits. Contact tracing, as you may know, that we do have nurses that are working on the weekends, doing some contact tracing and contacting homes. So that's being paid out of this ESSER grant. And the last one came out specifically from our agency partners, where youth advocacy and local CYS was very interested in the implementation of a homeschool visitor. If you've been in education at all, you know that sometimes, unfortunately, kids fall off the grid, and it'd be nice to be able to knock on doors and try to find and make sure kids are safe. So that's something that was brought up specifically by one of our community partners. Again, these are our proposed spending for our ARP ESSER money. The non-instructional pieces total about $1.2 million for a total of, I guess I haven't been going very well, for a total of 3.8. And specifically what came out of the discussion with our community partners and the agencies were, number one, they were looking for a homeschool visitor, and that's something they were very interested in, and that's obviously a decision we'll have to make at a district level. Some possibility of doing some SEL at the high school, maybe as an elective, if some students were interested in some different courses, and that would not basically have zero cost associated with it because we would be able to use existing staffing. The additional year of the reading interventionist, what Heather talked about, additional funding for contact tracing, the allocation for textbooks, and there was a correction made to the math supervisor benefits. So that is the initial plan for the ESSER. And And I'd be happy, or Heather or I would certainly entertain any questions from the board.
Thanks. One thing, because I'm going to try and predict a question that could come out of this about the SEL. If anybody's curious about what the previously approved SEL program is and you want to look it up, it's very easy. It's a program that was put together by the Lions Club, which most of you have probably heard of. And it's, if you go to www.lions, just like it sounds, /quest.org. It's a program that's been around for like 30 years, and you can look into that whole thing. And if there are parents who look into that curriculum that is existing there, and it is something that you don't want your student to participate in for whatever reason, there is always an opt-out for curriculum. So I know I've heard in the past that SEL can be controversial, and that was the program that we've approved in the past, and you know, that gives everybody the opportunity to look into it more, see what the different programs are.
Molly, the only other thing I would add is if the community has input or they have questions, again, you know, we're not hitting the submit button or anything. We're putting it out there. It is on the website for folks to look at. My suggestion is we fire up that questions at TASD.net again. And so, like, if anybody has any comments or you have questions about it, if you want to go to questions at TASD.net and drop us an email, or you have input, or you think, you know, we missed something, please do that, and it'll help us to revise. Again, this thing can be revised until 2024. Okay, it really is very fluid, but you know, if there's things that you feel should be included, give us that feedback. Okay?
Yeah, in case anybody on YouTube didn't hear all that, the submit button has not been pushed on this. If there's community feedback that people want to ask questions or offer information, we are reactivating or reopening up the questions at TASD.net email address, so you can email those questions in, and we can, or suggestions, comments, you know, whatever the case may be, and they'll be looked at and considered.
Mr. Doherty, you said you were going to answer some questions.
I asked the board if the board had any questions.
Guys, can we ask questions about this specific program?
You can email questions about that, or you can, you know, you can ask them during public comment, but we aren't necessarily going to have answers, because this is a very, you know, as you saw, it's a pretty complex document. So if there are specific questions, it's probably best to email them so that people can look into that and get you proper answers.
Is that the speaker that we're supposed to use tonight right here, this microphone here?
Yeah.
It's not public comment yet.
I know, it's going to be this sunshine law violation.
All right, so we haven't gotten to that part yet, but just so you know,
jeez.
for a sunshine law objection, please state the section and subsection of the law that you're.
Gotcha. So the ESSER grant,
What's the section and subsection of the law
it's
that
going
you're?
to be, it's going to be referring to the ESSER grant that you have?
No, what of the
I'm
actual
gonna-
sunshine law?
You're going to get it, but how big is that? Because the ESSER grant is a lot bigger than.
This is not a sunshine
It's section.
objection.
Yeah, it's going to be the idea that we're supposed to have a copy of the things that will be up for discussion, commenting, deliberation.
There were copies on the edge of the thing, so.
This is, the only thing I got for the ESSER grant is like 6 pages of a PowerPoint. Where's the,
That,
where, yeah. Okay, so that's going to be my objection was going to be section C1, section 1, subsection 3. And we're supposed to be able to have that information available to us, not go Google it, okay?
okay,
Thank you.
it is overruled, thank you. All right. Any other board questions or information about that? And then public can give public comment during public comment period, which is coming up so quickly. So, we'll do some housekeeping. Thank you to everybody who decided to come out and join us tonight or who are watching online. Our rules for the night, or our procedures for the night, we'll have 2 public comment periods as always, a public comment on agenda items at the beginning and a public comment on non-agenda items at the end. There's a 4-minute limit per person per public comment period. When it's your turn to speak, please come to the microphone there at the front. We've even given you a podium now. State your name, please, your municipality, and which agenda items you're going to be speaking about. All speakers must be residents, taxpayers, students, or staff of Tunkhannock School District. If you have an objection to board action under Title 65, Part 2, Chapter 7 of the also known as the Sunshine Act, please go to the mic, state your name, as well as the section and subsection of Chapter 7 you believe is being violated. The presiding officer and/or district solicitor will make a determination on the stated objection, and that determination is final for our purposes tonight. Groups or individuals not residing within the district should email their comments to the school board president at holly.arnold@tasd.net in advance of any scheduled public meeting if they would like to register interest to speak at a board meeting. Please hold any comments, questions, or clarifications that arise during the board deliberations until the public comment period at the end of the meeting. All right? With that, I would like to put on the minutes that the board met in executive session for legal advice and personnel matters, as well as to review pending litigation filed in Wyoming County Court by George Uhas versus Tunkhannock, docket number 2022-19.
Now they got a sunshine law violation? Let's see. Don't yell at me, Bill. I'm trying. I really wish. So my sunshine violation is going to be based on Holly. You continue with that opening statement. It doesn't match our policy in the school district. We're allowed to have representatives speak. That's okay.
That's not a Sunshine Act objection.
So I have two of them then. So my sunshine law violation is public participation. Section D. Shall provide a reasonable opportunity at each advertised regular meeting and advertised special meeting for residents of the subdivision or their authority created by the political subdivision for taxpayer of the political subdivision or the authority created by a political subdivision or for both to comment on matters of official action, deliberation, which are or may be before the board, council prior to taking official action. So my sunshine law violation is we have representatives that won't be able to speak. Somehow you deleted it. Somehow you made some new business. That's not what you said is not in the school policy book. So therefore you must have behind closed doors created that policy. Everybody here must have agreed on it, not take that official action in front of us after 2 readings. And therefore that statement is littered with inaccuracies, not policies that could be found in the school policy book.
We hear your objection. We acknowledge it. It's overruled.
Could you please stop costing the district money and revise your opening statement?
Overruled. Do you have a public comment to make for your 4 minutes?
That's going to be my sunshine law violation, that you keep costing the district money.
Well, are you making a public comment as well?
I'll wait till my turn for public comment.
Okay. Any other public comment on agenda items?
In the district. I have some follow-up questions on a couple of things. So I just want someone to get back with me. It doesn't have to be now. So I had talked about before getting an action plan, so that was on the agenda from last time. It's on the agenda this time, so that's what I spoke about last time. This is about our policy about vulgarity. So we've got a couple of violations that are going on. So we have 2 committees that are going to be involved with this question, policy committee and a curriculum committee. So we've got the book issue that it's still going on. Sorry, it sounds like a broken record. I had asked for a plan of correction, and since there's really a lot of holes in this process, we have an action plan. I got an answer about that today. Let me just back up. So there was an action plan about what happens to anybody who's faculty, staff, administration. I understand about the action plan. If I could have a written action plan with the ID markers redacted, I don't need to know names. In other words, I understand that might be a violation of privacy. About the steps that happen to faculty, staff, or whatever if they violate the policy for vulgarity. So that was specifically about books and music. We've had some stuff happening. The only thing that I was told last time was the All-American Boys book was put in the library. That book seems to be coming around and circulated back into supplemental curriculum. It's been going on for 4 years as far as I know. If I'm wrong about that, I apologize, but it just keeps coming back into the classrooms. I think that book meets the definition for vulgarity. That is one of the policies for our school district, to not have vulgarity in the school. Going to the school dance. So if someone could please pass some of these along. I won't read it. I'll save that for you guys. Some of the words to one of the Cardi B songs that was played at the school dance. You don't have to read all the words. You can read a couple of the words and realize where that's going. Disgusting stuff. This is not my first rodeo at a school dance. I had kids in high school dances 20 years ago. I was chaperoning. I know what they do. This is nothing new. What I'm asking you guys is, as a school board, find out where the holes were in this situation. There needs to be a plan of correction. Find out what your policies are. Fix this so it doesn't keep happening, because it will. If you just let teachers, faculty, staff, whatever, set these things up, bring books into the classroom without looking around and without following their procedure that they're supposed to, you're just going to keep getting apologies. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Let's just put the book in the library. The next dance or event that happens, oh, I'm sorry, we shouldn't have had that music happen. It's just going to keep happening. So that's what I'm concerned about. I would like to see a plan of correction in writing, some kind of policy. And the other suggestion I had was, and I'm not volunteering, just to have someone in the community maybe be involved with that. Could that be possibly a paid position? But because it seems like there might be a lot of things to look at. I think I had another question. I wonder if this ESSER III money grant that's coming in, how much of that is going to be considered perpetual, sustainable, things that need to be eventually picked up by another funding source? Or are we going to have to be paying for that with taxpayer money, getting another grant? How long is this going to last? Where's it going to go from here?
Thank you, Sheila.
Okay. If someone could get back to me on that. Thank you.
The best bet during, because we're in a time of transition, would be to send that question into that questions@tasd.net that we're going to be looking at for that, because I don't want to say that we'll get right back to you and then, we don't. So, thank you. Any other public comment on agenda items?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Lacey. I'm from Washington Township. My question is, I was looking at and perhaps somebody can enlighten me, I'm looking at the budget, which is quite overwhelming. And one of the things that kind of stuck to me, congratulations to our new superintendent, was when he mentioned $150,000 for an outdoor space. And then goes on to say it's going to be heated and cooled. So what is the purpose of this outdoor building? How many students can it house? And is it really appropriate? I think one of the things that the school board has to look at is a responsibility to the taxpayer. And as I look at the nickel and diming, all of a sudden we're at $4 million. And my question is, what is this going to look like? What's the purpose is it going to serve? And is it really required? And I think those are questions that we need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Did you say Boyce? I'm sorry. Your last name, was it Boyce?
No, it's Lacey, L-A-C-E-Y.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I was asked, we're going to be talking about 903. Also be talking about your mentioning of my suit. I was asked specifically, why did I wait so long to finally, bring suit or whatever, take action now? It's mostly because it's going to take a lot of money. So, we basically realized it's going to take tens of thousands of dollars. I didn't have that, so we created organizations and nonprofits, and we're raising money to be able to unfortunately battle every time our president says, get a lawyer. Now it's costing everybody money, including the district. We're going to be paying these guys that allow you to make mistakes to defend you from us with our money. I mean, we're looking into that, trust me. So, 903, the policy, your policy, states that no participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. That's an existing policy. If you don't honor that tonight, and somehow you willy-nilly rewrote that back there in executive session 2, and you're going to deny me to be able to speak on multiple topics, it's going to be a sunshine law violation. Because I'm allowed, according to the sunshine law, as you know, to speak on items before there are official action taken on them. You shake your head no. It's okay. I appreciate that. That's kind of nice and childish. So I'm going to be trying to speak. You'll maybe shut my mic off, maybe receive some more violations. It'll be on you. Where's the full ESSER grant, and why don't we have a copy of that? You didn't have the copy of the masking mandate available. I had to post that myself on the outside, and you guys wouldn't have posted a full masking mandate, because if read, the public would be up in arms. If the public knew what this ESSER grant is, not this propaganda 7-page PowerPoint, they would be all up in arms over this, and you're banking on they're not going to look into it. But we did, and we'll continue on it. Who decides when to hit the submit button that Mrs. McPherson called it, the submit button? And then whoever decides when the revisions happen, who gets to revise? Is it Mrs. Egan revising the school curriculum without the board knowing? You all were up shocked when you found out that stuff was getting changed behind your back. So do you all vote to agree to this, what you think you're agreeing to? And then let them just consistently hit revision, revision, revision. Read the 78-page. I'll get one mailed to each one of the school board members' houses. You all have a copy of the Sunshine Law, a courtesy of me. It's all in front of you. Don't trust them. They walk into if John Burke, if any of these two guys that this agency let you at your business cause that many errors, you would fire them. The only reason you're not firing them is because you're not necessarily paying them. We all are. There was enough errors made by this solicitor and this firm. It's insane. You're only lucky I'm starting now with my lawsuits. You're only lucky now.
George, I don't know why you're addressing me specifically.
Well, I'm just letting you know, these guys made so many errors, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. Holly, Holly.
You address me, George.
I'll address Holly then. Holly, if John Burke had that, he'd fire them. The policy change.
I wouldn't
the
fire them,
policy,
because we
the
haven't
policy,
lost these things
the
against you,
policy
George.
change, the policy change committee meeting was terrible. I almost want you to proceed with whatever, accepting your first reading, because by the time that complaint comes to you, you might be through your second reading, and then you'll be forced to do a do-over or pay the penalty. Most of the time, through negotiations, we just say do-over. I gave Holly, I gave Bill Pabola, and I gave Mr. Franco a chance to do a do-over. Plenty of errors. Plenty of errors at that meeting that should not have went on. I sent you all a video. You can watch it. You can see it happening. You can see
George,
it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Hold my time, mister.
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question. Was that just a threat that came out of your mouth?
Which one?
When you said we were all going to pay?
For what?
Was that a threat?
What did I say? Remind me.
That
If
if
you.
after the
yeah,
second reading
Yes,
came?
if you all.
After the second
Yeah,
reading
okay,
came?
here,
Was that a threat?
I will let you know exactly what my threat was. If you allow this to get to a first and second reading, then you all will have to do a complete do-over, so you'll waste all of our time, and you.
All I asked was
That's
is
the
that a
threat. You will cause a redo.
Okay.
When you could have just easily started over before. How much time? You said 30 seconds I had? So that policy meeting, somebody can stand up, review all of my complaints. If you want them, I have them here. Go into recess. Don't take your first reading on that, because that alone is littered with First Amendment violations. You didn't even give us a chance to see what was going to be changed. We could have had our constitutional attorney there to help you not make mistakes, because these guys aren't helping you. I'll be back.
Thanks, George. Any other public comment on agenda items? Okay. Seeing none. Item 5, approval of minutes. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
My name's Owen Woods. A few weeks ago, I was quarantined due to the close contact. I never was sick or had any symptoms or anything. That quarantine put me out of the Wyoming Valley Conference tournament. I never won that tournament. I would have liked to win it as a senior.
Owen.
Yeah,
Hey,
can
real
you
quick,
pull
just
that closer to
get a
your
little
mouth?
close to that mic if you would, so we can hear you. Thanks, Owen.
Please stay with the wearing of the masks and allow close contacts to go to school and participate in sports. I have one shot left to please get my 100 wins, so please do not rob me of keeping my senior year.
Thanks, Owen.
Who was that?
Owen Woods.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody else? Okay. Item number 5, approval of minutes.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Mr. Widener. Is your microphone on? Okay.
Second.
Mr. Farr, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco? Yes. Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. And everybody do a mic check and make sure that they're on. All right, item 6, business and finance. Do we have a motion for items 1 through 6?
Motion to approve 1 through 6.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Franco? Yes. Mrs. Goebel?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. All right, item 7, superintendent's report. Mr. DeLuca.
Yes, good evening. I'm seeking a motion to approve the superintendent's report and the agenda, items 1 through 5. Invite any questions from the board.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 1 to 5.
Thank you, Mr. Widener.
Is Greg here?
Yeah, do we get a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, second. And then you had a question. You asked
I
if
have a
Greg was here?
question for Greg. Greg, going to the, pathways to career readiness, are you looking specifically for making things bigger in the district for us, for more options?
It actually is a lot more about best practices, looking at the data, taking what we have here, making it better.
Okay, All right, thanks.
There's a lot of good stuff. Puts us in a good networking position with the state for some stuff.
Okay, thanks.
And in case anybody couldn't hear on YouTube or anywhere else, he said that this is mostly about best practices and taking what we have and making it better. We have a lot of really great things here. Was that an accurate summary? Okay. Any other discussion or questions on those agenda items? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Franco? Yes. Mrs. Goldberg?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mrs. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Eckert?
Yes.
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mrs. Arnold?
Yes. Committee reports. The only committee that I'm aware of that met were the teacher negotiation committee met last Friday, and the curriculum committee met last Tuesday. We had an agenda of about 7 policies that we were going to look at. We made it through 3, and you'll find those on the agenda under new business for the first reading.
It was the policy committee last Tuesday, not the curriculum.
Oh, policy committee, sorry, I used to chair both of them. So it was the policy committee that met last Tuesday, not the curriculum committee. And we can talk more about those when we get to the first reading. Were there any other committee reports or committee discussion? Okay, moving on to unfinished business. Item number 1 is the Visa account for information. Item number 2, also for everybody's information, is the Kelly Services summary of their substitute teacher fill rate. Item number 3, the first reading of board policies. The three policies that we went through were 006 for meetings for the board members, 006.1, which discussed attendance at electronic communications meeting, brought that up to date, and policy 903, was one of many in the 900s that we were hoping to get to and only got to that one. And that was, some of the major changes were there was the option to have public comment from groups. We have moved that to register and send an email about that, and we can schedule them on the agenda as needed. We extended the comment period from 2 minutes to 4 minutes. We, I think, eliminated, or at least didn't choose to take an option to limit public comment as a whole. And we did have a provision in there that if a group wanted to have a spokesperson come and talk, that was that, email, and we'll get it set up. So I think that was the substantive. It's there for everybody to review versus the old policy. This is just the first reading. So if anybody has anything that they want to address on that or to make revisions, there's no vote needed on this. So we are. No, this is the board discussion. If the board has anything that they want revised, changed, considered, discussion on those items, like I said, there's no vote tonight. This is just the first reading, but we could make revisions if that was something that people wanted.
I would like to make a motion to have it tabled.
Do we have a second on that motion?
What in particular? All of them?
The tabling of the policies. So we have a second on that. Do we have, what is the procedure if it's not something that has to be voted on? Do we vote on the tabling?
Yes, we vote on the table, it's not actually a discussion. Ironically enough, we can't discuss it. So once the motion is made, second.
Okay, so we have a roll call on a motion to table the policies for first reading. All right, roll call, please.